Hey, what's up, people? Welcome to the Binge Worthy Podcast with
What's
myself
happening,
and
y'all?
G. Oliver.
What's going on? What's going on?
So what's the cocktail for tonight?
Ooh, boy,
I
we
have
got
my essential water. I gave up juice for Lent, so the dry party over here tonight.
You said essential water?
Essential water.
Water.
I gave up juice for Lent, so
essential whiskey.
It's gonna be a good show.
Huh?
I say it's gonna be a good show. I was asked to see what you were sipping on tonight.
The people wanted to know, huh? The people
inquiring minds would like to know.
Inquiring minds wanted to know. This is Jameson on the rocks. So get your drink, sit back. We got a show tonight. They out here in these mean streets saying that people getting robbed, blind.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Miss Carrie Washington back on the scene with a brand new show.
Right.
But really, the people want to talk about people getting robbed. People getting robbed out here, left and right. So I figure we need to talk about it. I got some notes from the last meeting though.
Okay.
Because I you always telling me look it up, do your own research and all that stuff, and I was like, all right, let me do some research. See what's happening.
All right, what you got?
So if y'all joined us, if y'all were with us last week, we had a very lively, spirited discussion about the slap and the Chris Rock recent comedy. I just wanted to point out a couple things that I actually was surprised to find this out. So I was wondering, we talked a lot about whether or not he chose Baltimore because of its connection to Jada Pinkett. And so I looked it up. And he doesn't come to Baltimore very often. However, he has been here a few times in the past. He was here twice in 2022, and then he was here another 2 times in the same year. I think it was like 2012. Interestingly, Baltimore was the first place that he performed in after the slap, like right after, like a few months after. He did not address the slap. He did not talk about the slap, but he did perform here. So he comes here, when I was looking down his list of concert dates, it looks like the front end of a decade and the back end of a decade. It's like how often he gets to Baltimore. And I guess that tracks to a certain extent. So maybe he did choose Baltimore for this particular one simply because of the material. But he does come to Baltimore. And then we had that portion where we talked about fences, right? And we had talked about fences and the nominations, and you had made this claim, or you said this before, that you didn't feel like when directors want to do it all, direct, produce, in front of the camera. You know, they on the camera, behind the camera, and then in the editing room and all that things. That sometimes it's too much. And I was thinking about that because I was like, you know, yeah, but then there's some who I think have done and studied the craft enough. But in the instance of Denzel, I just think it's poignant to point out that like Fences racked up a ton of awards. Like throughout, when you look at award season, we tend to focus solely on the Oscars,
right?
With understandably, because I feel like, you know, if you look at all these other awards as kind of like the championship run, like the playoffs, so to speak, the championship game would be the Oscars. But I think that it's poignant to point out, like Fences was nominated for Oscars, Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress, won for Best Supporting Actress, also won for Best Adapted Screenplay. But then, you know, multiple awards for the NAACP Image Awards, nominations and wins, the Golden Globes, the BAFTA Awards, the SAG Awards. So when I was looking at just the Oscars, though, like when you look at Fences, like we all remember that Denzel didn't win for Fences, but Val won. He was nominated. It was nominated for Best Picture, and it won for Best Adapted Screenplay. So, you know what I'm saying? Like the film won two Oscars and was nominated overall for 5. So, you know,
I thought it was 6.
Maybe. Yeah, no, so I found it was nominated for Best Picture. It didn't win Best Picture. Best Actor for Denzel, he didn't win. Best Supporting Actress nomination for Viola Davis, she won. And then I believe it won or was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. Those were the 5 that I found. If there was a 6th one in there, I missed it. But then, like, going down the list of all the accolades for the film, it was, like, ridiculous. Like, the Saturn Awards, the NAACP Awards, the Film Critics Awards.
It won across the board. And I think that was due in part to the cast, but also August Wilson. People love August Wilson. So I think that contributed to a lot of it as well. To see, and this was his first film. His first play that was adapted into a film. And I don't see how the screen play was adapted because it was literally almost word for word.
Like it would, I mean, and I think that plays a lot into it when you can make a film that well. And it's almost a direct translation. Because I remember watching that film and I was like, where they going to change it at? Where they going to change it at? Because, you know, like one of the most adapted for film from the stage is probably Shakespeare, right? But they always got to put a spin on it. They got to
the language,
change the setting. Yeah. Sometimes they change the language. Sometimes they change.
Well, I think that's what they did for this. They let us see where these people were coming and going from.
Right. So like that was what was interesting. I was watching it and I was just like, there were parts. So like the whole play takes place on the stage, like in the front yard, like the setting doesn't stand. So like when they went into the house, that was when I was like, oh, okay, y'all gonna have this part in the house. I was like, and that's interesting. But I get it because as a film, it doesn't really work if you just stay in one spot the whole time. Right. So though that open conversation with him and his best friend, and you actually get to see them working their route as trash men and clocking out. And you see, you know, the whole situation with the driver, him wanting to drive, as opposed, right, like that whole
hearing about it and talking
brought
about
some richness to it, right?
Yeah.
And it all worked because you did not have and that what I thought was the sweet spot because he didn't change the language, like other lesser films would have added in something in those scenes to kind of make it. But he was able to kind of transition
and I think that's probably why it won, because that's the magic of August Wilson. He writes so much. He writes so much that you can't. Why would you want to change anything?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to, I wanted to touch on those because I went and looked some stuff up after our very spirited conversation last week, and yeah, man.
Emphasis on the
So
spirited.
yeah, it was very spirited. I rewatched it. I was quite tickled.
Hey, Miss Jiggets.
I was quite. What's up, Miss Jiggets in the house? No, not Essential Whiskey. Yes, Essential Whiskey. Essential Whiskey by the name of Jameson. Jameson Essential Whiskey. So yeah, we got a show for y'all tonight. I think we're gonna spend quite a bit of time talking about Miss Bassett and some things that went down this weekend with her. We'll talk a little bit about them Academy Awards, whether we should, be invited or not. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, tell her. And then Kerry Washington got some new joint. She got a new joint out on Hulu.
Yeah, we can start with that one.
We're gonna talk about Unprisoned. So I think I watched the first 3 episodes. The first 2 episodes, it was a struggle to get through. But as they started to flesh out, I think in the 3rd episode was where they really kind of started to flesh out what this relationship between she and her father. So this is based on the real life of Terry McMillan, like pre award-winning Times best-selling list author. And this is like part of her life story, I guess, in the years leading up to her becoming. I'm not sure. It's funny because I didn't get to read a whole lot about it because I'm like, was she a therapist before she was a writer? I don't know. I'm going to look all those things up. But her father, who has been in and out of prison for the better part of her life, has just got out of federal penitentiary, I think, for after a 17-year stint. She's a single mom. She's a therapist, and the dad comes out and kind of throws everything up in a loop. So the first 2 episodes I thought were kind of dry, and I forgive that because the title card says Unprisoned, and then in parentheses is like based on some like it was something funny, like based on some ridiculously true shit or something like that, right? And so I get it. I'm like, and then in the credits I saw that like this was created by Terry McMillan, developed and produced by her. So I guess in those situations there's probably going to be some embellishment. There's going to be some things to kind of make it more entertaining, but you're dealing with a very real life story, so you don't want to overdo it. So they kind of come off a little slow moving the first 2 episodes, but then without giving away any spoilers, there's some interaction between her and her father in the 3rd episode that really it starts to get interesting. So in the first 3 episodes, I'm on the fence. I saw promise in the 3rd episode. What was your take on it?
So I only got to see the first episode. Had a little busy week. One, it was very interesting to I was trying to pull up the my notes, but it was very interesting. Terry McMillan is an interesting character. That's okay. I'm just gonna start with that.
So you gotta tell her, you gotta educate me on this one because other than like knowing some of her work, her as a person I'm very unfamiliar with. So you gotta give me some context.
We've gotten a good, especially this is one of her pieces that's been able to be transformed from novel to the first 2 were from movies. This is TV, which is somewhat, I guess, different from with hearing from her. Terry McMillan is a very interesting character, but most authors who get their work adapted, we realize, are interesting characters. Maya Angelou, what was the lady from The Color Purple? I just finished watching a lot of documentaries and interviews with her. But Terry McMillan is a character. We saw her with Stella Got Her Groove Back, Waiting to Exhale, and now Unprisoned. Her stories are always from a very interesting perspective. I like her as a playwright because when she lends her work to be translated, I heard that she worked more with this piece than she worked with, say, Stella Got Grew Back, and because she'll say, I'm an author. I'm not a screenwriter. I'm not a playwright. I am a author. I write books. So it was interesting to see that she had a little bit more input in this one, and probably because it's probably more financially feasible for her to be more connected to her work. And TV pays way more, can pay way more than a film. A film is normally you get a paycheck and you may get some residuals on the back end, but TV is very lucrative, and it's especially for Black writers and producers. They're learning that their work is, they have to stay attached to it so it don't turn into something else. But the two of these characters together, and I'm sure as the season goes on, we'll see more from the son. I mean, the son was involved in it, but I'm sure you'll see more from him.
You did.
But these two were very interesting characters. I love him and most of the stuff that he's done. My favorite piece of all from him is Crooklyn.
Of course. I think that's every. So this is Delroy Lindo we talking about.
There we go.
You know, the amazing Black actor that we all know and love. Crooklyn fame. I think for depending on how old you are, that's where you would probably
like an our age group. That's probably where we
age bracket. From. Yeah. But he's been in film and television for as long as I can remember.
Right.
A lot of supporting roles, the very no nonsense.
What was the soldier film that we reviewed as well? It was some recent work that he did.
Oh, what was that?
I think somebody died, and was it a soldier story? No, it wasn't a soldier story. I can't remember the name of the movie.
We've talked about a soldier story. That's an older one though. I can't remember if he was in that or not.
This one was, they all were I think they went back to find something. They all went back. I think they were all in Vietnam.
Oh, the Spike Lee Netflix movie.
Yeah.
He was in that.
So he was in that. That's also Chadwick. I think Chadwick Boseman died in that. Didn't he die in that one?
I can't remember if he died or not, but yeah, Chadwick Boseman was in that.
So that was the last thing that I saw him in. So from my favorite Brooklyn, right? My favorite,
he was in Malcolm X. He played the gangster that Malcolm worked for in Malcolm X.
He always had very interesting roles.
The Five Bloods. That's what it was.
Right. But he's one of them ones that you see him and stuff, and he seems like he always is working in something.
Oh, he played Bass Reeves and the one with Idris Elba and Jonathan Majors. Another Netflix one, The Harder They Fall. He played Bass Reeves in that. And he was bad in that one.
So for my last time seeing it was in the Army one. Seeing him and then jump into this, and he's playing an ex-con. Their character, and I've only saw the first episode, so seeing them play together, it feels Perry Washington is a little quirky, a little different in this. I was seeing like the trailer for this and other clips, and I can't wait to see like the rest of the people who step in, but it's interesting. I'm gonna just say that.
And it
was a very interesting matchup with the two of them.
Comments, it definitely plays like a comedy. And there are
Yeah.
quite some funny moments in it so far. Like I said, the first two episodes, I was really like, I don't know about this, but as like I said, I think this show kind of hit some notes in season 3 that I really appreciate. In episode 3 that I
Right.
really appreciated. So as of right now, having only seen the first 3 episodes, I'm gonna call it a just maybe, and I've had shows like this in the past. They have a slow start, and they
Mhm.
pick up as the season goes on. So I'm looking forward to finishing out and seeing what it's about. So far I can say I would recommend checking it out. Definitely.
Yeah. I don't see her as like she normally has to play around other people who are funny to me. I've seen her in a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Actually, something that she starred in is actually going to be a play. At center stage, Strange Little Things. Um, and I'm gonna just watch it. I'm gonna let myself watch
Right.
it.
Yeah, and
And
to be clear, like when I say that it plays to comedy, I think it's more situational. Um,
mm,
like the situations and just the natural reactions of the characters to the situation is where the comedy plays in. It's not her trying to be a comedian. um, because I don't know how well that would work.
yeah, like I think her, like both of them are. It seems like they have very dry humor, and is that's why I said it was like a somewhat of an awkward combination. But I see it them two warming up to each other. I've seen them in a lot of interviews promoting this, and they seem to have good chemistry. But I just want to see that kind of unfold, and I didn't see that really in the first episode. You can tell they know each other, but I just want to. I don't know. I guess the premise of the story is her being somewhat of a offbeat character.
I, that,
Mm,
I, it depends on what your definition of offbeat. I didn't really get that. Um, what was interesting was that, and I don't know, and I'm guessing it's her life story.
hmm
She has a white boyfriend. Her son is mixed race,
hmm
which would lead to the assumption that she's more into like the interracial dating, and if some people call that offbeat, maybe that's it. Um, but no, yeah, I didn't really see where she was off. And like her, so she's also the product of a mixed race marriage. So her mother, or I don't even know if they were married or not, but because her father was so in and out of prison, I don't know if the mom and dad were ever actually
I don't remember it
married.
in that first episode. I don't remember that
But yeah,
being brought up.
because that's not brought up in the first episode, so that's
Yeah.
something that you learn, I think, in episode 2. So maybe the
Okay.
offbeatness that you've heard about is like there was a scene between the three of them, and I was like, oh, this is a different household because you can't talk to straight up black parents like that, like the way that she was addressing, her
Her
father and
mother.
her mother, and I was just like, oh, okay, so this, very free range raised. You know what I mean? Like, so that part came out. So maybe some people felt like that made her like a little bit of an offbeat character.
hmm
Um, but I don't know. Like, we can come back to this. I think when we've seen it, all,
Once you
all
see
8
more
or
episodes,
yeah, I think it's like an eight
I like
episode
this type of
run. They're all
character.
on Hulu right now.
Like I like this character being shown as an older man versus some young guy that gets out of jail. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because it just I think those types of characters need to be humanized a little bit more because I know in watching some of the trailer and a couple of more clips of the other episodes, it you kind of that character needs to be humanized, and I like the fact that they're making this character and they're not really. It doesn't feel like they're exploiting because if you've ever lived with someone who just came home, they're a little different. They got it different, and I didn't get institutionalized from him. So I'm glad they're not bringing up like the stereotypes, but really how it is when someone comes home, and not like the stereotypical, you know, type of person. And I just think that person having uncles that were in and out of college, you kind of you don't really see their characters being done with any grace or respect. So I'm glad that they're exploring this in this way. I'm you gotta just watch some interviews with Terry McMillan. She's just a quirky. She's the one who so Stella Got Her Groove Back is based off of her marriage to this young man from the islands. But
Oh, okay.
we find
I
out in
didn't know
real
that.
life that young man turned out to be gay, or he considered himself bisexual, and so we don't see that as how Stella got her groove back. So she allows her life to be sprinkled in the pieces, but never really telling. So I wonder how close to real life this story was.
Well, let me just say this. I did not know that about how Stella got her groove back. I'm
Yeah,
assuming
that's
that
based
there's
off her
parts of
marriage.
her life sprinkled into like Waiting to Exhale and
Hmm.
in her other work, right?
Yeah.
So I will say that in just giving the benefit of the doubt, I would say that this is probably a little bit different because this would be the first time that she's publicly advertised like, hey y'all, this based on me. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if that was and maybe it was publicly advertised like at the time that the books were released and the movies were released. Because I'm not gonna
Well,
sit
you
here.
kind of get the if you read the book, of course she tells a little bit about herself, but you don't for Stella how Stella got a groove back. You don't realize so the character Angela Bassett is supposed to be her. So you don't really find out until her marriage and real life goes bad how how this story was kind of based off of her life and how she went to Jamaica and found the love of her life, and then you find out all the other stuff. But um, she's never really as transparent or out there, so it's always loosely based. And this was promoted as something being loosely based, but I want to see how. I would love to hear how close to her real life this story is with this type of story. So I'm guessing she's more of the Kerry Washington character, or
Okay.
so
No, I
I'm
mean
just interested in that.
the Kerry Washington character is like based on her, and I mean
Okay.
it's pretty like that is stated like very early on, like this is my life.
And that's probably why I got the offbeatness from her because she has a very in your face type of personality, and I guess that's not. I don't care how down home Kerry Washington tries to be, it doesn't come across that way. It comes across a little LA still,
Oh shit!
but I
Oh
guess that's
shit!
her personality. Even though I think she's from Brooklyn or something like that. Right. I'm just saying.
We need sound effects for our production.
We do. We're working on it. We're working on it. We're working on it. I'm just saying, but that's just how it is. But from the first episode, is definitely something I want to continue watching. Um, I'll have to say it's really hard for me to get into stuff now because stuff can be here today, gone tomorrow, and I hate investing my attention to something and then it just disappears.
What
Have
do you
you
mean by
gotten to
that?
watch any more episodes of the Miss Pat show?
No, I haven't. I need to jump back on that. I think I spent some time on BET Plus because we were discussing something. Oh, we were discussing the Monique project.
Okay.
So in jumping on because I watched that twice in preparation for the show, and that's how I ended up watching the Miss Pat show. So once the episode was over, I haven't gone back but I've thought about it a couple times. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I can tell you why I haven't watched it. Because I have kids. And I made the mistake of watching the Miss Pat show with my kids, and I was like, oh, I turned this off. Like, wait, this a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can, you know, like they're old enough, like they can hear a few foul words here and there, but I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, but
Some of
they
the subject
get
matter, I
into
was like,
subject
they get
matter.
into subject matter that is not for kids.
But the
What
crazy thing is, well, I guess if you have teenagers,
well, the funny thing is, some of it, I'm not gonna say it's for kids. Some of it, if the type of family that talks to each other and like you have conversations about certain things, it's actually some of the things that are touched on are real great for like dinner table conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like if your kids wanted to know more, or like, why'd she say that? Why'd she say it like that? And we actually in like the 20 minutes of the show or the episode, like that's what essentially happened. They wanted to know what she was talking about, like what she meant by that. Like they had a small frame of reference.
Yeah.
So there are moments like that too. But then there are also moments that it's like, no, this is not for you.
But the weird thing is the subject matter is not, I would say it could be considered PG-13. It's her reaction to it that is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like almost, I won't say R-rated, but borderline.
It's something.
It's, I think the one of the episodes of the final of this last season, the daughter is sexting almost. So it's like a sexting children episode, and it's really weird, but the way it's handled is very funny. But you'll be like, oh, I don't think I can let my child. But then once you get into it, you're like, oh, that's not bad. If you can get past the profanity. But some parents are like, I don't want any profanity. If you can get past the profanity, then I think, but then there's other stuff that comes up, especially with the sister that's played by Tammy Roman.
Bruh, the sister's wild. The sister wild. And I never know what's about to come out of her mouth.
Right.
So
we so busy looking at Miss Pat, you don't notice the sister, and then something comes out her mouth, and
you don't know what's about to come out of her mouth. So it's like that's where I was just like, all right, kids, like maybe this ain't the best for y'all.
Man, y'all might have to watch this on a replay years from now, because it's definitely not that tight. But the next story that we wanted to come up with was so today's topic is basically the politics and being honored or rewarded. And we all know that there's
disclaimer, y'all. Just as a disclaimer, Nate be coming up with these topics. We don't be consulting.
No, because sometimes I'm thinking about
he come up with an idea. He like, yeah, this the angle right here. I ain't had.
But it's not. Well, no. One, I want to, not be so like we're not Cisco and Ebert, but I really want to connect to like the overall topic, and especially today we're talking a little bit about Angela Bassett.
Ooh, Twitter
and her
Twitter was
and the
on
Snub.
fire.
And I interested in that. Somebody told me that Jamie Lee Curtis is younger than her, and I'm curious as to how old she is. I should look this up. 64. So Jamie Lee Curtis is 64. Yeah. And Angela they the same age. Wow.
The black don't crack.
That's interesting. But a lot of people are so the Oscars just aired. The Oscars just aired, and there was an upset. I can't even remember the other ladies that were in that category. Do you know the other lady that's in that category?
So Jamie Lee Curtis, Angela Bassett,
And that's all we know.
Kate Blanchett,
Oh, I
and the
didn't even
young
realize
lady,
that was her.
the other young lady was nominated for the same film. And I cannot think of her name. Me and my sister were talking about it earlier, and neither one of us could remember. Neither one of us knew. I'm not gonna say we couldn't remember because this is the first movie I remember seeing her in.
Right.
But she was. We remember her character's name from the movie. But the daughter from Everything Everywhere All at Once was also nominated. And her name, give me a moment. Her name is Stephanie Hugh.
Yeah,
so she was also nominated. And that was all I could remember.
Now I'm gonna preface this by
and so
saying
there was somebody else in there that I can't remember.
I'm gonna preface this by saying pre-Kanye rants from Jamie Lee Curtis. I used to be a Jamie.
You mentioned that, and I don't even think I knew about those.
Oh yeah, she was going off. It was when he was being accused of being anti-Semitic. And I believe she's Jewish. I want to say she's Jewish. And she went off and began to talk about her grandparents that survived the Holocaust, and I'm not taking anything away from her, but it just got borderline. All right, you're doing too much because now you're talking about him. So much so that when she was interviewing, I didn't even know that that was the movie that she was in, and that's probably why she was on that interview. So it became about Kanye West on that, and it became to be too much because you got a lot more white men that you could be talking about other than this one. And that's just how I took it. So pre Kanye rant, I was a pretty good fan of Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm not as much of her Scream Queen legacy. Not much, but she did a lot. She did she did a movie.
It's so funny that people like. So like she was in like one horror movie, like Halloween.
No, I'm just saying the legacy because her mother was considered a Scream Queen.
Oh,
so okay. I just said like the legacy that she has. But she kind of picked that up and she did one when she was much younger, and then she did like the remake of it like later in life.
Well, she's played that character several times, like the Halloween 2. I think she came back for the sequel, and then there was a few made without her, and then there were and then all the way up to the most recent iteration, which was like a trilogy, where she again was the star. Yeah,
I think this was the final one though.
Yeah, the most recent one was the final one, yes.
But she's a pretty good actress. Surprisingly, she's never won an Oscar before. So this was her first Oscar win. Now, everybody was saying that they saw the movie. It wasn't anything extraordinary about it.
That's a lie.
Well, I'm just reporting on what people who
that was playing into the point that I was gonna make. Because all right, but go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that was just what people, because everybody wanted Angela to win. So Angela was snubbed for What's Love Got to Do with It. And we can probably think of maybe 3 more films from her that she deserved it or she deserved to win. And she had already won the Academy Award for part 2 of Black Panther, but people just assumed it was going to be a snowball effect. I believe she won an NAACP award. She won the Academy Award. This was going to be, the snowball effect. And she didn't win it. What was surprising for people was she didn't hide it. Typically, when they put the cameras on everybody, everybody has that Hollywood face, and they're so happy for the winner. And Angela like, no, bitch.
That's not true either. But I'll talk about that.
With the camera moment?
No. I'm just saying, like this idea that everybody, like the common practice is like you clap and you do these things.
Right.
That is the common practice.
Right.
But I was listening to I have a regular movie podcast that I listen to, and the female commentator actually touched on that because they brought it up. And she made she's like, hold on, time out. Like, Angela Bassett is not the first and won't be the last person to have an honest reaction to losing the Oscar. Like,
but
everybody else's reaction
from her,
is performing it. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's expected from anybody. Like, I think the common practice is like, you clap, you smile, you congratulate. And the funny thing was, the other thing that I didn't like about that moment was that, so literally the way the Oscars works is when they announce the winner, they have all 5 nominees like in these mini boxes on the screen together. So what we got was like a very, very initial reaction to it. And people are extrapolating it as if she was just salty about it the whole time. But literally, the camera is on you for the 5 to 10 seconds that it takes them to announce the winner. And then it cuts to the winner as they walk down and walk up on the stage and accept the award. You don't see what happens when they come back to their seat. They typically don't go back to them in the middle of the night. So, like, to have this one moment where the initial reaction was like, and to make that her, to like assign that as her reaction is just crazy. So to draw a comparison, we know that Will initially laughed or chuckled at Chris Rock's joke before he then went up on the stage and slapped him. And that was something that people brought up. It was like, nah, he laughed at first, right? Your initial reaction to something is not the end all be all, right? Like,
and he was telling other jokes before he started on her.
No, he laughed at the Jada joke, and then, but my point, the point is this: like, your initial like knee-jerk reaction to something in the immediate is not always like the end all be all. So people were trying to assign this thing to Angela. Like, Angela Bassett has shown us nothing but class in her 30+ year body of work. So for her to have had this delayed reaction, or even let's call it what it looked like, this disappointment, or this kind of like, that's some bullshit type of reaction, like, we can give that to her.
This was the second time it happened,
story of her character.
Right. She's been, in my opinion, she's been snubbed for a greater portion of her career. And this happened, same thing happened with her back when she was up for What's Love Got to Do with It. So I'm not saying she, and as many people were saying, she doesn't owe the Oscars or the watchers a smile. You know, her knee-jerk reaction probably was a little, I don't think she was pissed off or salty. I think she was sad. Like, if you've ever been in a seat where you were being honored and like the anticipation up into them saying a name, no matter what the name is.
And it's the Academy Awards. It's the Super Bowl of the film industry. So you got teams that get to the Super Bowl like once a decade. Right? You know what I'm saying? Angela Bassett has been nominated twice in her whole career. 1994 and 2023. So when you look at it from that perspective, the numbers are not in her favor. Like, she might not ever be back in that particular category again. She could be, but she could be, like, it's also a possibility that she doesn't make it back there.
Why
nominated again? Well, just by a numbers game, right? Like, most people in the industry are lucky to get nominated once, some twice. You have some people that have been nominated, but when you look at it from a numbers game, like, if it's like the Super Bowl. It's like if I played on a team and we got here in 94 and then we got back here, then we play every year, but we ain't make it back to the big game until 2023, and we didn't win it, I'd be disappointed, because at that point, it's like, shit, I might not see this stage again. That's a real possibility. So, and I think that's a possibility for everybody.
That was, that
like
was
Jamie Lee Curtis would have probably had the same reaction if she hadn't won, because like by the numbers, it's a very real possibility that might be her last time in that category, right? For Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress. And I feel like it's like that for a lot. Like, think about and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Ki-Wan Kwan, who won Best Supporting Actor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, people was talking, like, I thought it was kind of messed up because he's Asian, and we tend to think that if you're not an American actor, that means that your career is like, you don't have a career. For all I know, this man has been putting out films every year, forever, right? Like in the time, but the last time that American audiences saw that man was in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which I think came out in the 1980s, right? And I believe he was also in The Goonies, which also came out in the 1980s. So like people are talking like, oh yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Like his career, he was there and then he wasn't anymore. When that man could have been over in his home country and
could have been doing films here and they just wasn't nominated.
Doing films here that weren't like, mainstream stuff. But my point is, I don't know how old he is. He's much older now. He was older than me when I first saw Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And this might, for most people, like being nominated for an Academy Award, much less winning it, is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know what I'm saying? So
and I have to honestly say I've won awards. Never an Oscar or a Grammy or a Tony, but I think the weight that people put on the Oscars is
stressful.
Stressful, yes.
Definitely stressful.
And that's one of the reasons I love Monique, because her messaging was, they thought enough of me to choose me, so let them finish that process. I'm not running around trying to get people to pick me because they already picked her. I just feel like I feel, because one of the messages that's coming out now was Oscars so white, of course, but the idea that there are other populations and cultures of people who never even get put in the lineup, like Asian actors or trans actors or there's a number of populations of people who never even get chosen, and it's just interesting to me how much weight. What I do appreciate, and I've seen this for the last 2 years, the NAACP award has a surge of attention being put on it. And I don't know what that reason is. Like even this year, there was even more people. If you watch it, there's even more people that attended that typically don't attend the NAACP award.
Well, I mean, shouldn't we?
Coffee says he hadn't acted for 30 years. Oh, wow, that's interesting. You said, shouldn't we what?
That's not true. I'm looking at his filmography right now. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So nine film projects. And so like we remember him from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and then The Goonies. That's 1984 and 1985. So he did those two movies back to back. And then he has 9 movies in between The Goonies and Everything Everywhere All at Once. So he's been acting the whole time.
Right.
He has credits and he's done some voice work and animation and television work in that time as well.
And that's sometimes like when I was reading how they do the selection process. Like first of all, you got to make sure your film was even registered in time, so it does get consideration. And then on top of that, these people are watching all these films, and they don't typically watch every single last film that come out. Like stuff that come out earlier in the year typically is sometimes forgotten unless it was a big impact. So stuff comes out at the end of the year. So I don't know how I really stand with these award shows, because my messaging, even after this happened with Angela Bassett, why do we put so much weight on something that is obviously never going to really see us unless we do something extremely left field? And just think about the people who won Oscars, the Black actors that won Oscars. What did they have to do in order to get?
We're not always happy with right. Like there's controversy even in the win.
Yeah, Halle Berry's win. Nobody is saying the movie was bad, but nobody liked the fact that she had to sleep with this white man in order to get it. I think for Whoopi Goldberg, she had to play like a janky palm reader, psychic.
Well, why is that janky?
I mean, she wasn't being real.
Why would we call that like being janky? She played a character.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying her performance was janky, but the character in the movie was like a con artist. They were cons. They wasn't.
But wait, But hold on. Let's be clear about something. She was not a con artist. It was alluded to people. People felt like she was a con artist because they didn't believe her.
Well,
which is hilarious.
She had the gift, but she was playing with it. It wasn't until Patrick Swayze character came in that all those other spirits actually started coming in. Like it was all a game. She was putting on airs at first, playing with people on the surface, but then this real shit happened. Like, and it opened up the door for this is an open door for us. Now let's go through this door.
You're right.
So that's when she started making the money, and that's when all the stuff started happening. But I mean, I'm not speaking. I love Ghost.
Right.
Denzel Washington had to play the crooked cop. So is this what we have to do in order to be it? Angela Bassett is never going to be a slave. She's never going to be a prostitute or anything that is disgraceful to her, in my opinion. So what is she going to win for? If she couldn't win for all of these characters she played, what will it take for her to win? Like, what is it? What's the role? What's the, Viola Davis, she's the snot bubble queen. So that if she get it out, she gonna win something. Denzel Washington has these strong monologue moments. He gonna win something. Whoopi Goldberg just has this interchangeable thing that she does from role to role, where she almost like she's that person. She gonna win. But what does Angela Bassett? And we have tons of great actresses that we look to. Monique had to be this monster of a character to win. Like, what role is it going to take? She was the documentary biopic queen for like the 90s.
Right.
She played everybody's real life mama in the 90s. Like, she did a great job. She played, and it's very hard for a character that lip sync to be taken seriously. But she played Tina Turner as if we forgot she was lip syncing for a minute there. If it didn't sound like Tina Turner, we would have put on. But we got so deep into that we believed it. Deep in it. She played Michael Jackson's mother. She played Betty Shabazz. She played Coretta. She played Rosa Parks. She played, like, she ran through them biopics. Like none of them were Oscar worthy. And it's just hard to wrap my head around why do we still push for that? Why is that the biggest one out of all of them? So I don't know. I'm just lost as to what we're supposed to do now. Do we put all of our energy into NAACP, BET awards, Soul Train award? Like, do we put all our energy into them and kind of? So, because what if one year we're just absent from those awards? Do you think that would have any impact at all?
Like absent and we just
Like
don't
none
show
of us
up.
show up. A day of absence, literally.
I think it would have a huge effect.
But do you think it's possible for us to band together and do that? Like I'm speaking about all people of color.
No.
Just absent.
No. All people of color?
All people of color, just absent.
No. Nope.
You will get some people, the people like Jennifer Lopez, they still will show up. Stuff like that. But I mean, like the real people of color that see themselves as people of color. What if we all just were absent that day as audience and as people live there, commentators, presenters?
I could see black folk. I could see black folk doing it. All people of color, no.
I mean, because a lot of people are complaining that we don't see Asian, we don't see Indian, we don't see any of those other people even being nominated, let alone winning. At least we're now in a cycle of we have a group of winners, or our projects are being, spoken about now. I mean, you can't make another film anymore where a white man is playing an Egyptian. You can't do movies like that anymore. Without it being banned. So I think, and the big question is who could get a whole culture of people to not come? Who would be that voice that people respect enough?
I'm not sure. I don't even know if it's necessary. I'm on the fence with this one.
Why is it not necessary though?
Well, we just saw the Academy Awards where, I think we have a right to be disappointed in Angela Bassett's loss. But we just saw an Academy Awards where 4 out of 5 of the top acting awards went to Asian folk. And to be honest with you, yo, I'm looking at a list of like nominations and wins over the past the 2000s, right? So 2000 to 2009, and the majority of them are morally in the middle, morally compromised characters.
From all cultures.
Yeah, well, I mean, most of these winners are white. Like Julia Roberts and Erin Brockovich. I don't know if you've seen that.
Definitely. That's the lady who
like,
wear the mini skirts.
Yeah. Halle Berry for Monsters Ball. Nicole Kidman and Virginia Woolf. That's a historical one. So I'm not really.
That was a good film.
Yeah, I don't think I saw that. But then the year before that, it was Charlize Theron for Monster. So
he was a
serial killer. Also based on a true story, biopic. Hilary Swank and $1 Million Baby. Reese Witherspoon and Walk the Line, another biopic. Helen Mirren is in the Queen, another biopic. Marion Cotillard and Laviva and Rose. That was 2007. I don't think I saw that one. Kate Winslet in The Reader. Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side. So of the ones that I've seen, right, out of this list of winners, and I'm looking at the nominees as well, but like none of these are like when people talk about like Denzel having to be a crooked cop, Halle Berry, which I don't think anybody had a problem with Halle Berry's character, except that there was a sex scene with her and a white man. Mm-hmm. Like everything that I'm familiar with. These are amoral characters. I mean, even in the biopics, if you look at Helen Mirren and the Queen, I haven't seen that movie, but I mean, if she's playing Queen Elizabeth, like, and if it was an honest depiction, if it was like if it had any air of honesty to it, then there would have been questionable character like traits and choices in that movie.
Right.
So I wonder, I wonder if, like being Black in America and having had gone through and in some ways still had going through these like stereotypical and or negative like just portrayals of Black folk, right, plays into this idea around who and how we win Academy Awards. Because honestly, like I don't think you ever gonna see like this joint where it's like this just like, oh, I'm I'm this perfect person. Outside of biopics, like the biopics seem to be the outlier when you're playing someone, especially someone who's revered by a lot of people, like people win for that. And we've talked about how people are portrayed, right, in these
but
movies,
not many biopics even get nominated. It's been very few that's actually been nominated.
Well, let's see. Look. Let's look at I'm looking at a 10-year list here. Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side is a biopic. Helen Mirren is a biopic. Reese Witherspoon won Walk the Line, a biopic. Charlize Theron won a biopic. Nicole Kidman won a biopic. Mm-hmm. And Julia Roberts kicked off the 2000 with the win for Erin Brockovich, which is also a biopic. So out of this, this is 9,
1 or 2, maybe 2 a year.
No, dude, this is in a decade. We're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So out of a 10-year period, 6 of the winners were biopics. Like they were playing a real life person.
The thing is, and I think it's less about actual race and the idea that you have to get ugly or messy or like you have to transform yourself physically in order to win. And just being a straightforward great actor or actress isn't enough. Like all of those people you just named, and just in the Bible, they had to transform themselves. And the idea of how we look at good acting from a conceptual perspective versus my story stands on its own, my acting stands on its own. And this character didn't necessarily have to get ugly or put in prosthetic teeth, or I didn't have to do any of those things in order to win. But again, we look at the people of color that have had to win, there had to have been some type of transformation.
Well, I mean, isn't that acting?
That's a part of it. Coffee says like the movie A Day Without a Mexican. Well,
That sounds like a Day of
actually,
Absence.
Day of
I don't think I've
Absence
seen that one.
is
They have a
the
movie called A
original
Day
play, and The Day Without Mexicans was
based on a Day of Absence.
based on A Day of Absence by Douglas Turner Ward. But yeah, that is like
I think
that.
I want to see that now.
You want to see what?
A Day Without Mexicans.
I saw the play form. Was that made into a movie?
No, I'm just saying, like like A Day of Absence, we know. But the gentleman in the comments was saying, there's a movie or a film called A Day Without Mexicans.
That's what I'm saying. So there's a play that's the same as
Denzel and Man on Fire was absolutely amazing. But like, also, to what point are we biased? Because I'm not gonna lie, I gotta bring this up. At what point am I like biased towards my people? Because I think Denzel should be nominated for everything he does. And that's not a joke.
I agree.
I honestly believe that
I've never seen a
97 to 98% of films that Denzel Washington has done, I'm like, how did he get nominated for that?
I'll say 99%. And the one movie that I would say was that 1%. Had he found another director, I would have been 100%, and not just 99% with him.
Okay. So like,
and that's just my opinion.
97% of Denzel films, I feel like he should be nominated.
Not in theater. Now, I've seen him in theater.
No, I'm talking about film. I'm just talking about film right now. 97, 98% of stuff that I see Viola Davis or Angela Bassett in, I'm like, they should be nominated. But I also like feeling like that. I understand that these are my people. These are my actors. These are my actresses. You know what I'm saying? Like so it doesn't surprise me that I feel like that. But I also
we have non-black actors that we feel that way about too.
I don't. Like, I'm a huge Meryl Streep fan, but I ain't gonna say I feel like she should be nominated for 95% of her films. I really feel like that about Denzel. Like, I really I feel like there's like 3 Denzel films where I was like, okay, that's cool. Every other Denzel film, I'm like, yo, that was amazing.
Yeah, how great do we have to be to go? How great do we have to be before it's like it's not even a question who will win this?
Yeah,
we still are up against.
So
we're up because I don't think. I mean, you probably looked at if you looked at or heard or watched live for this one for Angela Bassett, you probably heard the names. But there were still people in it that was like, this person going up against.
But that's what I'm saying. That's where I have to question, and this is just honestly and trying to be fair about the situation, where I have to question my biasness. Because you're right. I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, but only because I'm a sci-fi nerd geek. Like, I'm going to see every sci-fi film that comes out. And especially a sci-fi film that everybody and their mother is like, yo, this is amazing. Because it was. Like, that movie was amazing. It was a whole total mind F of a movie, and it was really good.
But are you biased because they're black or because they're just great?
I think it's a little bit of both. I do. I think it's a little bit of both.
And that's okay. I'm not saying
I believe it's a little bit. I think it's a little bit of both. I think I love Denzel so much because he's a black man and I'm a black man. I do.
And you are actor and that's somebody.
I watch Denzel and I'm just like, that's it. That's it. So like, yeah, I sometimes I do question that. I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure, but I do have to call it into question sometimes. that point. Like me, like, is it because like I connect? Here's the thing: I connect with black characters more than any other. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can watch. Like, another one of my favorites is Tom Cruise. I can watch the Tom Cruise movie over and over again. I like Tom Cruise movies.
Action movies, only action movies.
Tom Cruise movies for the most part, and that's what I'm talking about. Mostly the action.
When he's
Since
talking,
I was a kid,
I'm done.
But I don't connect with him on, like, when I watch a Denzel Washington, when I watch a Delroy Lindo, when I watch a you know what I'm saying? Like, when I'm watching
Black, and that's kind of where my point is, in the direction of that same bias in another culture is why we don't often win. And it's the reason we need representation.
We're ultimately outnumbered. So is the Academy problem really just more of a representation problem, in that maybe there's not enough of us?
Well, they said the average age of the judges the demographic is a white man over the age of 60. Now, there are other actors in that. Whoopi Goldberg has talked about being a part of that membership, and various other black established actors are. However, it's not enough to be able to sway a vote.
They're far and few between. So in that scenario, I think it's better for us to just keep pushing. Like, don't give up on the Oscars.
Never give up.
I wouldn't say give up on the Oscars.
What are we pushing for?
We're pushing for that inclusion.
For the men to die?
No,
are we pushing for the men to die? Well,
I think it's more about more of us understanding the importance of being a part of those bodies, right? Like, taking that time. Because I'm assuming that, like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think any of these people get paid or anything like that. I think it's just like, there's a certain criteria, and if you meet the criteria, then you apply for it, right? Like, and there's like a lot.
Well, they ask you in. You have to be asked in. It's like being on a board of directors or something. It's more
because here's the thing: if we know what the demographics are, right? If we know what those demographics are, and we can even admit our own biases, then we understand why things are where they are.
But you just said it. Those men watching Crooklyn and watching Delroy play that character, I always wanted him to be my dad. Like, I lost my dad young, and I wanted him to be my dad. So I didn't want that many damn siblings. Let's just make that clear. But I wanted him to be my dad. But we have a connection to these characters in the same way. And I always say, because I always wanted to run an art gallery. And what happens with, like, say, visual art and just art in general. And I think racism plays a part when you realize, oh, I feel this way about all black art or majority black art. What happens is, in my opinion, white art is normally very conceptual, meaning let's find a thing to, I need a muse. Okay, this is my muse. And then I create an idea from that conceptual art. The hugging art piece with Martin and Coretta, that's conceptual. That came from an idea and I translated it. That's not typically how black artists, and I'm not speaking in general, I'm just speaking typically in my experience. We create art from our experience. Not to say other races don't, but most of our art is deeply rooted in who we are. Whether I'm the actor and I have that as experience, or I'm the director or the writer and I'm drawing from my experience, whereas though this wasn't just a random concept that I honed in on and I created from, but I know this person. You know, I've always looked at Denzel and Will Smith and that whole line of black male actors that you may know the Don Cheetos of them and you know them, but they just randomly find themselves in work. And you just, and Angela Bassett has that for me. She's able to shapeshift herself into roles. The same as, why can't I think of anybody's name? Viola Davis and the lady who played. I just watched The Help 5 times in the last 2 months.
Octavia Spencer.
Octavia Spencer. The two of them on the screen together is crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my mind. I casted a movie that I have not written. I just came up with a concept and the characters and the actors I want, and only because these actors have proven themselves, all women have proven themselves to be very stand-alone characters in whatever they play.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to me that um, we make this about race often, or some of us make this about race, but it's really what I value and what I see as art. And I may not see what's love got to do with it as art.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's about a real person. So how much do these characters really have to stretch? And I say it in that way because I work in non-black spaces, and that's the criticism that I've gotten, that I've seen other artists of color get when they're being judged by somebody who's never shared my experience. Teachers, faculty in the theater arts or the arts have the same problem in grading artists of color because our stuff comes from the inside out often. And that they don't look at that as a means of stretching. We already look at Angela Bassett as this regal character. So how much of a stretch did she have? Well, she learned a whole dialect. And that's not easy
But
for
so we look at her as this regal character. I'm
right.
not sure if everybody else looks at her as this regal character.
Probably do.
Like us, I like black people. We know, like that's Mama Angela, right? Like you said,
Right.
she's played everybody's mama. We look at her as this regal character, but then in the space of the Academy Awards, we know that for her to be nominated, like she would have had to have connected outside of us, right? Like we saw that. For us, we saw that. We was like, yeah. You know what I'm
But
saying? Like
she's
we
done
saw
that.
that.
She did that
And
on
she's done
the
that,
what
and
was
she's
the
done that
thriller? What was
before.
the series?
She's done that before, but then
What was the TV series that she was in? Where
which
she
one?
played multiple characters.
911. No, that was,
No, not 911. I can never think of the name of this one. Where each season she was a different character.
American Horror Story.
American Horror Story.
Or,
I thought that was her connecting with other cultures.
It was.
Her playing Marie Laveau. She played a lady with 3 titties.
Generally speaking, there are camps. So like I'm a American Horror Story fan. We fall into 3 camps. There's the camp that feels like the first season is the best season. There's the camp that feels like the second season. The largest camp, though, is undoubtedly the ones who the witches. And Angela Bassett and
But I thought that character Marie Laveau was very easy for her. But when she played the other characters,
isn't that the point? Like it's supposed to look easy.
No, I'm not saying that, but I would expect for them to cast her as Marie Laveau.
But that's probably
other characters that she played.
That was probably the most popular season of American Horror Story.
You said what?
That was probably, arguably, like that season of American Horror Story probably has the biggest the largest followers. Because when they brought them back later, I think they brought them back in like season 8 or 9. It was like, yeah, like It blew people's minds. And a lot of that was Angela Bassett and the older white lady. What's her name?
I can see her face. Yeah, she played the witch
from Misery. She actually didn't play a witch.
Yeah.
She played the racist slave owner who got brought back to life.
Mm-hmm.
But between the two of them and the witch supreme lady, Jessica Lange, those three,
Jessica Lange.
they were like that was it for that season. It was a wrap. Like most people feel like that was probably the best season of American Horror Story. So
Kathy Bates, because that was gonna mess with me. Kathy Bates,
yeah. Yeah, man. I think it's I think if we are acknowledging the fact that cultural bias does play a part.
A big part. And it really has, since the inception of it, has pushed specific genres of people out of the line of getting their flowers. And I say that in a way where I don't even think it's pure racism. It's how people value art from the other side. So I think something has to happen, like a day of absence. Like we just take ourselves out of, and I really say out of all their
I would be willing.
It may hurt us.
Listen, y'all. Look, they call a day of absence, and I'm gonna be absent because I would be interested enough to find out like how that's gonna work out. So I'm gonna be down for it. Ultimately, though, I actually think it would work. I actually think it would work against us. In this particular instance, I think it would actually work against us.
But it will force them. If the world sees that it ain't no black people, ain't nobody announcing on the red carpet. None of them are walking the red carpet. None of them are announcing or presenting.
There would be major controversy. But here's what scares me. What scares me about this is that everybody just goes off into their little cultural corner. And I don't know if I like that idea.
Why?
Because I want to compete with everybody.
Why?
I think every cultural corner already has like its award show and its awards, right? Like the Academy Awards is where everybody come together. And it's like, all right, we're going to determine.
Yeah, but if we're all coming,
everybody, because there's
if we all keep coming together only for them to win.
What I mean by that, Nate, is that there's an Asian Film Critics Awards show. We have the NAACP Awards, right? Like, so if we all in our own little bubbles rewarding ourselves, like, where does the growth come from? Where does the art, how does the art advance or transform? So we have this problem with the Academy. We have a problem. But the answer to that problem, like there are realistic solutions that can come from that that can solve or start to mitigate that problem.
In 85 years, it hasn't been solved.
Like I don't know what you want me to say. Like I don't know what you want me to say.
Like I'm not. I don't think awards. The crazy thing is, I don't think either of us have a solution. But it's been 85 years.
Here's my thing. At the end of the day, if we're gonna cut it, if we do that, we gotta stick to it. We gotta stick to it because they
for the whole season, for the whole award season.
Let's be clear about something. It will hurt initially.
But how will it hurt though?
It will hurt them. I'm talking about them. I'm talking about like white culture. It would hurt.
But I'm asking, right? How will it hurt them though?
If we stop watching, we stop going, we stop accepting their invitations, it would hurt. Because you said it earlier. It would affect the bag.
Yep.
But all they're gonna do is reshape the metrics, and they will still be an Academy Award. Now to just be all white. And for the truly nefarious racists behind, like, And my whole thing is, if we're going to pull our support and we ask the Asian community to support their support, and we ask the Native community to support their support, and we ask the African community to support their support, and everybody goes off into their own little circle, fine. But if everybody's still revering the Academy Awards after that shit is over, that's a problem. Because if we're going to pull our shit, then we gotta just let them have it.
But see, the thing. So let's take the audience out of it for a second.
Because it goes deeper. Because we need to understand that we can put all of our support, and all of their people still in the major networks, all of their people still in the major marketing firms. So what I'm saying is, for them, the show will go on. The show will go on if we decide that we're not going to participate.
But the show can still go on for us as well. The show can still go on for us as well.
If their show continues to go on, and all the people of color are like, that's the real show.
But we wouldn't be just doing it for the Oscars. We'll be doing it for the Academy Awards. We'll be doing it for the Tonys. If we do this across the board, it's not to say.
Nate,
so, like you just said, so those award shows,
it will be an initial.
I'll say certain award shows is for us to be able to all come together. But at some point, we realize that we're all coming together for all of them to win every single time. So if I remove myself from this, and like I said, not just from the Oscars, but from the Grammys, from
but that is not true. One white man won a Best Acting win this year. Okay, that is categorically unfair. Like, that is not true.
What is not true? You keep saying what's not true.
For them to win every year, that's not true.
But it has been true. Now, every other year, the pendulum swings in a different direction.
Up until about a decade ago, it has absolutely been true. But we also know that, like, all people of color have fought barriers to get into.
But it's not all, though. It's been select, because it's not open to all of our films. But it's not open to all of our films. How many times have you seen Don Cheadle win? Can you the same thing you said about about Denzel Washington? I feel the same way about Denzel. I feel the same way about Will Smith. I feel the same way about Don Cheadle. I feel the same way about.
You do not feel like Will Smith deserves an Oscar nomination in 95% of his films. Maybe Don Cheadle. I feel like Don Cheadle should be nominated.
You may not feel that. You may not feel it, but I do. Especially when I'm seeing, no,
95%.
That's my opinion.
You saying Mike Lowry
that is my opinion, especially when I am seeing other races of people being selected for much less. I'm a fan of Will Smith. I'm a fan of.
I think that's disrespectful to the craft to say that. Honestly.
I don't know. It's not disrespectful, and I think that's where the problem lies. Just because you don't agree with what my top picks are, it doesn't make my top picks invalid.
To say
it's not disrespectful. It's not. I don't think Tom Cruise is a good actor. I don't think
he's also never won an Academy Award.
Great.
He's never won an Academy Award.
They got one right.
He's a box office king. He's never won an Academy Award. Nobody's out here like.
But he's on somebody's favorite list, though. I don't know why he would be, but again, I respect everybody's list.
Like,
I'm a fan of these people.
Chris Tucker's on somebody's favorite list. Doesn't just being on somebody's favorite list does not make you Oscar material. Like
it shouldn't disqualify you either.
People's favorites list,
but it shouldn't disqualify you either.
But it doesn't.
I've seen crazy things be nominated, but if that same thing put with people of color in it, it's that is awful.
Can I ask you an honest question?
You can.
have you seen Crazy Things get nominated, or do you assume Crazy Things get nominated?
I've watched the Oscars every year since I was probably 16.
I saw a lot of people making comments. So like
I
was engaged.
I used to watch every single award show.
I asked this because no, that's not the question I asked you.
No, I'm saying. So you asked me if I seen Crazy Things win, and I said I've been watching since I was
Crazy
15.
Things nominated, or did you just see things nominated that you just didn't have an interest in, so you never saw them? Because I realized that was my issue.
It was really up until maybe 5 years ago that I didn't watch everything that ever came out.
So you couldn't even name. You claim like you're making a case for Angela Bassett.
No, that's not just about Angela Bassett.
Hold on.
It's about black art in general.
Let's talk about the one specific topic that brought us here tonight. You've been making a case for Angela Bassett not winning and why she should, but you couldn't even name the other people that were in the category. So I know you ain't seen them films.
I just said up until 5 years ago, I watched everything that came out.
But have you seen the films?
In that category, I saw hers. I saw Jamie Lee Curtis movie. You did hear what I just said. I said up until 5 years ago.
And so, what was your opinion about? So, did you feel like she was robbed?
Who?
Angela Bassett.
Yeah, I think she should have won.
But did you feel like she was robbed? Because that's a very different. That's very, very different connotation.
You said you watched.
I thought Angela Bassett should have won. I thought Angela Bassett should have won. But I'm not gonna say she got robbed.
I think she got robbed. Did you see Jamie Lee Curtis movie?
I seen Who you said that?
Did you see the Jamie Lee Curtis movie?
Yes.
So compared to her, if you compare the two, who do you think should have won?
Everything, everywhere. So I thought that Angela Bassett should have won.
That's it.
But I was disappointed. I was disappointed when she didn't win. I was like, okay, like I wasn't sitting there like she got robbed when she didn't get it though.
Yeah, but if it's clear, if it's crystal clear,
it was my opinion. Her performance,
but it was crystal clear to me that her performance was far better than Jamie Lee Curtis.
That is an opinion, Nate.
And that's what I'm speaking from.
So my question is, how can you say?
And there were a lot. I mean, that opinion was.
How do you even compare those two roles?
How do I compare the two of them?
Mm-hmm.
There is no comparison.
That's an easy way out. Like, what are your factors?
That's not an easy way out. Okay. But I believe she could have acted a lot, with the exception of that one young lady who haven't seen anything else from.
So Jamie Lee Curtis won. She won in a movie where literally the only reason they didn't have a Best Actor category in that film was because it didn't qualify. Everybody else in the movie won, and everyone in that movie. This movie. Does
that make it better than Black Panther?
So this movie was better than Black Panther. As a film, as an overall film, it was absolutely better than Black Panther.
I didn't think so, and I didn't really even care for.
So maybe you're biased. Maybe that's your biasness.
Is that a problem?
Really good. Black Panther was really, really good. Everything Everywhere All at Once was a phenomenal film. And that's why it won. And that's why it won Best Picture of the Year.
Is that why it won?
It was a phenomenal film, Nate.
Is that really why it won?
It was a fresh film. It had a completely original story. It was told in a completely original way. It required all of the main actors.
And I'm not even a person who likes the
jump between characters.
But I thought it was. I didn't think it was better than Black Panther.
I thought that Everything Everywhere All at Once was a phenomenal film, and I don't think that Wakanda Forever even comes close as a film, as a overall complete film to Everything Everywhere All at Once.
And that's your opinion.
So, although I loved Angela Bassett's performance and I thought it was incredibly powerful, and I was rooting for and thought that monologue was enough for her to win, I also can't look over here and be like, oh, she got robbed.
So what do you call it then? What do you call it? Because this category wasn't about the film. It was about that character in the film.
She lost to a character. She lost to an actress who had, in my opinion, had a lot more.
Film that you thought was better than the movie that this other great actor was in.
Say that again.
You felt like she lost to a film.
No,
because you can't tell me that Jamie Lee Curtis. I can't name anything.
Yes, I can.
If anything, this was by far better than anything Jamie Lee Curtis had ever done in her life.
But that's not what we comparing here. It's not a Lifetime Achievement Award.
I am setting it up to say, even with that being said, it was not a better performance than Angela Bassett's. And that's what this category was being judged off of. Not off the movie as a whole, as their character as a whole.
So I don't want to, but since you put me in this position, I can make an argument that it was a better performance.
That's your opinion. Just like it's mine, that's your opinion.
But I have actual data and I have
data. What's your data?
What's yours? Are we just gonna be an opinion show? Because everybody got an asshole, Nate.
Well, that's true. But my opinion counts very much.
I think that you have to get to a place where you can take your blinders off.
It's not a blinder. It's my opinion. I am not a fan of Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't think she's a good actress.
Angela Bassett.
I don't think just because she put on a wig,
monologue,
a short bald wig, doesn't make her a great actress.
Everybody else that she was competing with was actually in the movie, for a majority of the movie.
That don't make it a good movie.
They had naturally it gives them an advantage because they had more to
What advantage does it give them? It's not a good movie.
Work with more screen time is an advantage, Nate.
It wasn't a good movie.
What wasn't a good movie?
It wasn't a good movie.
Nigga, get the fuck out of here. Now you just clearly showing your biasness.
But it's not a bias. If I didn't enjoy it, there were movies that I deemed very great. That you didn't enjoy. It doesn't take away your opinion. It doesn't devalue your opinion.
Your opinion is that if it's not black, you're not interested.
No, I didn't say that at all.
You show your biasness.
No, that's not. But no, that's words that you're putting in my mouth, and it has nothing to do with what I believe. I don't believe there are a lot of films that don't have one black character in it that I absolutely love. But in this case, I felt like Angela Bassett gave a better performance than Jamie Lee Curtis with her dry blonde bob of a wig.
I think that the film that she was in gave her much more to work with than the film that Angela Bassett was in. In my opinion,
with that being happening, she still gave a better performance.
She had more playing time. And she also played a character that required her to switch between multiple roles, in a lot of cases, almost simultaneously. So you had that going for it, which is honestly why I think all four of them were nominated. There were 4 people from that film nominated for Best Acting category. 3 of them won. So, it's not a coincidence that people are looking at this and that was an amazing performance.
But to me, first of all, you'll never give me a charge of that because it wasn't all black. I don't like it. That's not a charge you'll ever give to me. As I said, I enjoy Angela Bassett in her movie more than I enjoyed that movie.
I enjoyed Wakanda Forever. I can also subjectively say that Everything Everywhere All at Once was a superior film. Just like it was a superior film to anything. And it's not just Black Panther. It's a superior film to anything Marvel has ever produced.
That's your opinion.
In the whole Marvel cinematic, Everything Everywhere All at Once was a superior film to everything that Marvel has ever produced.
Okay.
Not just Black Panther.
I'm not a Marvel fan supporter like that. I liked Angela Bassett's role in this film more than I liked Jamie Lee Curtis' role in her film.
Cool.
It had nothing to do with her being black. I just think Angela Bassett's a better character.
But
Even with
then
the shorter time frame, she was better.
to say that, I feel like that's an opinion, and to call it a
Well, for you to
robbery
say
is
that, it's an opinion.
to call it a robbery. A robbery is.
I never called anything a robbery. Those
I asked
were
you if
your
you thought she
words.
got robbed, nigga. You said yes.
No, that's those were your words. That was
Do we need to
your
rewind this
word.
back? I specifically asked you, Nate, did you feel like she got robbed? Yes,
I
George,
said,
I
what
felt
else
like
would
she
you
got
call it?
robbed.
I said, what
What
else
else
would
would
you
you call
call
it? She
it?
got robbed.
I said, what else would you call it?
You said she got robbed.
I know that's what you said. Go back, make sure when you watch
I didn't
this
say that because I
again
don't
that
believe that. Like,
you.
I didn't say that. I asked you if you thought she got robbed,
And that's
and you
not what
said
I
yes.
said. You asked me if I thought she got robbed. I said, what else would you call it? That was my response.
Well, what else would you call it?
What I'm asking you,
What
what else
else
would
would
you
you
call
call
it?
it? What would you call it? Stand on your
I
shit,
didn't,
Nate. What would you
but
call
that's
it?
not what I said. I didn't say she was
What
robbed.
would you
I
call
said
it
she
then?
should have won.
What would you call it, my
I
guy?
said she should have won, and I'm gonna stand on that. I'm not gonna use your terms to
Well, that's not my term.
explain your
That's a
point of
term.
view.
That's not my term. The term came
It's
from
not mine. I've never used that term
the
before.
Twitter sphere. But I did ask you, did she got robbed?
And
And
I
it's gonna be
said, what
interesting
would
when we
you
play this
call it?
shit back
That's what I
because
said. I
I
didn't say anything.
distinctively
I said,
remember
what would
you
you call it?
saying, "What would you call it?" and then following it up with, "Yeah, she got robbed." But
No, I did not say that.
we'll let the tape tell the
Go
story.
ahead. When you
We'll let
watch this
the tape
back,
tell
tell
the
me the
story.
second, and I'll cut
Nah,
that, and I'll
I was
post it up.
disappointed. I was rooting for Angela Bassett. I thought that it was going to be enough, but I was nervous. I'm gonna tell you why I was nervous. I was nervous for two reasons. I was nervous because Jamie Lee Curtis actually won the SAG Award for Best Supporting Actress, and that's where I started to get nervous. And also, you remember Denzel's movie, the movie where American Gangster. You remember American Gangster?
Yeah, I remember that. See, you got me.
And remember when Ruby Dee was nominated that year? She got nominated for American Gangster. Remember?
Okay.
And I was thinking about that the night of the Oscars because I just knew Ruby Dee was going to win. I was like, yeah, she going to win. She going to win.
Mm-hmm.
But she literally was in two scenes in the whole movie, right? She was in two scenes in the whole movie. And it was specifically the one where she slaps Denzel. And I remember watching that movie for the first time, and I was like, "Oh shit, she gonna get nominated for this." That was crazy. Like that was that. It was just that type of. It was that powerful of a moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I called it then. I was like, I like, yo, she might get nominated for that, and she got nominated. And I can't remember. I don't think she won. I can't remember who she lost to. And I was like, damn, like. If they had given her, like, if she had more screen time to work, like, around that character, it would have been a shoo-in because that one moment was so powerful. And I remember feeling like that because I saw Wakanda Forever like 3 times in the theater. But the first time when she gave that monologue about, have I not given everything? I knew then she was going to get nominated. But as it got closer and closer to the awards, I started getting nervous. I was like, shit, like she's the favorite. But then Jamie Lee Curtis won the SAG. And like the SAG is like the precursor to the Oscars. Like a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, the SAG and the Oscars usually line up. And when she won that SAG award, I was like, oh shit. I started getting nervous. But here's the thing, I enjoyed her performance. It was a very different kind of performance.
But my perspective on this, there's an algorithm to this, which is a problem because that means it's not based off of an individual's performance, but whatever you feel should have happened.
It's people.
Right, but so that's why I'm standing on my choice.
They're real people voting. I'm not saying you shouldn't stand on your choice, Nate. I'm not trying to get you
That's
to
what
admit.
It sounds like.
I'm not trying to get you to admit that like Jamie Lee Curtis had a better performance, because that's not even what the fuck I think.
And
what I'm saying is that what I am simply saying is that I understand, and everybody can't all like our favorites can't always win. Especially when you're talking about an award show that essentially looks at all of or most of the performances in movies that come out in a year and have to do the impossible task of narrowing it down to 5.
But I don't feel
and
like
then
that's even a narrowing down process.
Once it's narrowed down to 5, you then have the even more impossible task of trying to single out what was the best. And it's always subject to people's opinions. It's always subject to people's biases.
So why in me having an opinion seems out of control when these people who are actually charged with choosing the winner are doing this out of a bias, and they're doing it out of an opinion. They're not making any technical, like her monologue was 3.5 seconds longer than hers.
But you don't know that
she was in a movie.
You don't know
if that was the case, if it was really about her not having enough screen time, she wouldn't have been even nominated.
Let me ask you something. If you were on that board, would you just let your would you let your bias riddled opinion?
But it's not one. And this is no. But see, the double-edged sword in this is you're supposed to choose. I think they have a short list of criteria that they have to overlook, but ultimately, do I like this? And for me, if I had these two as my final 2 choices, I don't like this. I like this more. That's it. I'm a fan of acting. And that's not to say that I don't feel like Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't acting. I just don't see her as a strong actress. The film at large, which this category wasn't about, I just did not like it. I didn't. But there are Black films I don't like. Mm-hmm. And it has nothing to do with it being a Black film or a white film. I just did not like it. Because ultimately, and I've said this to you before,
I think
my technical eye is what I look at before I look at anything. I rarely look at things first and foremost as an actor. I'm looking at everything as a director or a technical person. And that's what I'm looking at when I'm looking at whether I like something or not. The fact that the Oscars or the Academy Awards, all the fact that they pick people based off of their own individual whatever, I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is you having this body of people that always goes this way. And it's not being diverse enough, equal enough for it to be a standstill or for it to be a landslide in other directions, not just Black, but in other directions. You know, there are, especially when it comes to the Emmy Awards, there are things that get chosen that I feel like shouldn't even have been on TV. But it gets chosen because there's a body of people that are choosing this that don't equal up to everybody getting a look at it. I think the Emmy Awards, it's going to be really hard for Miss Pat show to get chosen in an Emmy Award. Because people feel like, that's too much. That's too much. But when you have other things that are being chosen, that's in that same category that is like, you chose this. Now, I understand why you didn't choose this, but you chose this. It's just it's a problem, and I don't think it's necessarily racial.
But what about the issue that outside of people who watch BET, the Miss Pat show is just not. It's not widely popular yet.
But it's not. Those awards aren't based off of popularity. It's a body of people that are choosing it. That may be a factor. That may be a factor. But it's not the criteria.
But here's the thing. Popularity, it may not be based off popularity, but these are things that are known widely.
But that's not a part of the criteria, because each one of those shows have to select a show. Like, so, for example, the NAACP Awards has a podcast.
So how many?
Hold on. They have a podcast section.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, I've submitted mine, and there's a certain criteria. It has to be a certain length. For these other Emmys, and you have to submit. So they're watching what has been submitted, not what's popular. The people who chose the best possible clips or episodes or films that they thought would get them. The people watching are tasked with watching this and coming up with a solution, and then based on the criteria and what they personally like, choose. It's not about whether it's popular or not, because it's in the lineup of what you're watching. It's not like, did you watch this show? Oh, you never saw it? So that's not popular. Because the people who make up these judging boards and panels aren't the typical guideline for most of the shows that they're watching. So because you never saw my show, it makes it bad?
But that's what I'm saying, Nate. I don't think it makes it bad. It's not on their radar.
But that's not that show's problem. That's not that movie's problem. That's not your problem. Because I gave you an example of the work for you to watch. So that's what you're judging.
Okay, and you saying that they don't watch it?
I've seen interviews with.
So my question becomes
with several people who were on the panel.
Like, does everybody decide to submit themselves for awards contention?
Everybody can.
You're saying that everybody can, but does everybody? Is that something that is common practice? Like, everybody submits themselves?
Yeah, like if you knew how many films or TV shows or podcasts or whatever for these various awards, depending on what it is, they have to just submit by a certain time.
So anybody can submit.
Yeah, but I think, I think for films it had to have a certain run in a movie theater, or it had to be submitted by a certain time.
Do we know if they have a criteria?
I know that there's a criteria. What the criteria is, I don't know what that is.
Okay.
I just know it has to be submitted by a certain time. And I think for films, it had to have a run in a theater, even if it was a limited theater. But outside of what they're basing it off of, I don't think they will see it if it didn't meet the criteria. Oh yeah, so this says like it has to at least be 40 minutes long. I think a certain quality requirements. Those terms require that the movie is shown by means of 35 millimeter, 70 millimeter film, or in a 24 or 48 frame progressive scan. That's like and that's what makes it eligible.
So basically, everybody can submit their work.
Anybody can submit a film.
There's a committee that has to nominate the film, like have to nominate films.
Mm-hmm. I think you have to. Another thing is, I think it has to be, and this is sometimes the criteria for the festivals. Like it couldn't have been in other festivals. This says for Oscars eligibility, a film must be publicly exhibited for paid admission for at least 1 week at a commercial theater. Um, and it has to be submitted between January the 1st and December the 31st of that year. I guess the year prior to the actual Oscar award. So it has to be submitted by December 31st.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So it has to get in before the end of the year.
I don't know. I think the union things, like how many union actors and stuff like that, I think that's a part of it as well. But there's plenty of. Ooh, that's a good thing we should talk about too sometimes.
So it says nominations voting is conducted using online ballots. And then finals voting is also conducted online during finals. All Oscar categories are on the ballot for voting. So, yeah, okay. So they vote.
I guess they vote on what is selected, and then from that, that becomes what they want.
Right. Man, just 8,469 voting members.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it is by membership only.
And that's why you don't have like Tyler Perry movies being nominated, or because I don't think for a long time he wasn't even using. Well, he was using union actors, but I think he had to pay them a certain amount, and he was having issues with the union.
Yeah. So yeah, it probably, I mean, just historically, based on what I'm reading here, it would absolutely have like a good old boys problem issue, unless you made, which I think they did. And I saw an article that says that they actually took some steps to like rapidly diversify that board, but at almost not at 8,500 voting members, like
is that the Oscars?
And yeah,
that
this is the Academy.
Black woman that is in charge now.
But here's the thing: even as a black woman, she's not gonna open that shit up to just anybody. Like, there's actual criteria.
I think it's unfair to say just anybody.
There's actual criteria to being invited, and it's by sponsorship. Candidates must be sponsored by 2 Academy members. And wait a minute, am I still on the same page? Let me go back one. Who else and how do they vote?
And that typically,
but you have to have proven yourself in the field itself in order to be nominated.
But I
you know
think,
what I'm saying? Like,
but no, I think it's yes and no. But I think many of those nominations come from putting your film in Cannes Film Festivals and the French Film Festival, stuff like that. So that's why you normally get nominated. So those governing members go to those film festivals, and that's how your stuff gets. Oh, I like this film. Oh, I like that film, and that's how you get even chosen.
Small, like it's still technically a small group, so they talk.
All
right, like.
And they said the average member is like 65 and up, and a white male.
Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, but when is it? When isn't it? It's always a problem.
Hmm. And then they're members for life unless they get, suspended. Like Will Smith was, I believe, a member of the
Right, who
voting
got
body, and
suspended?
he's been suspended.
I don't think he was suspended. I was just looking at they've only suspended, or well, maybe not suspended. They have booted 5 people.
Hmm.
Will Smith wasn't one that they booted, so maybe he's
Well, he
suspended,
wasn't booted. He
but
was
not
just
booted.
suspended. So he was
Yeah.
suspended from being a voting member, but he's still able to have his film. And surprisingly, his film wasn't even nominated.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that was a surprise?
What was a surprise?
Will Smith movie not being nominated.
Yeah, for me, that was a surprise.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I thought he would at
absolutely.
least get a
But
nomination.
also, his movie came out extremely late, so I could actually see his not being nominated. Possibly, it could have played into the whole controversy thing.
But
But it also could have
was that
been if it's an
November?
online voting system.
Because they have
You
until
know what?
December 31st.
Hold on. I ain't gotta look. I'm sitting right here, bro. I got my shit queued up. We ain't gotta guess about nothing, Nate. You ain't gotta guess about a damn thing.
Mm.
Emancipation, 2022 film. Let's see. October 1st, 2022. And it was submitted by nomination. But what I was saying was that I don't know the particulars of like when they open and close the online voting. But let's say like me and you are like early voters. Like we may have voted before we saw Emancipation. You know what I'm saying?
But most films come out at the end of the year, so I don't think that was late.
But also, Emancipation I thought was really, really good.
And
Snub.
But I don't even think it was nominated at the NAACP Awards.
I mean, if you talk about films being snubbed, I feel like you can always come up with a list because the Academy has the in the Best Picture category, I think it's 10 films. So I have to narrow it down to like the 10 best films. I thought Emancipation was really, really good. It's got a 6.1 on IMDb.
Not to see it,
it's got a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got a 53% on Metacritic. So
40% is very ridiculous.
What's ridiculous?
40%.
Actually, no, because here's the thing: a lot of black people are tired of slave films. We've been saying this. We've been talking about this. We're tired of slave-themed films. So I can see a lot of motherfuckers say, I'm not going to see another slave film. Or even if they would like the type to go on Rotten Tomatoes and give it a review or audience score, could be like, I ain't fuck with this film because it's another slave film.
I think we referred to Rotten Tomatoes, but I don't think it's not anything that.
Yeah, I don't know anybody personally that does Rotten Tomatoes either. But what I'm saying is that, like, when you think about, you know what I'm saying, like The Woman King, I think was very different. Like if you told me you felt like The Woman King got snubbed, I would agree. But that was a different film. It was a different feeling. It was a different feel, different type of film. But a lot of people are like, a lot of black people in particular, like very tired of slave-themed films. Like we're over it. We know it happened. Like there is that.
I think that's. I always have felt like that was a crazy way of thinking, only because people are still being born, and showing my class. Well, we were never able to watch all of Roots, but showing my class excerpts of Roots compared to Will Smith's movie, they would watch that before they would watch Roots. One, because they would look at how it looks, and they're like, oh, this is. But they would watch that because that had more technical
Yeah, but
aspects of
young people aren't
coloring and
young.
lighting.
But
But
young, right? That's what I was getting ready to say.
it's
That's
not the
more of
people
an
who
editing
complain
thing than
about it. It's
anything
really not
else.
for them. That's the people who always complain about slave films. Don't watch slave films. So why are you
But that's
complaining
the
when you're
thing.
not gonna go watch it?
I don't. So my perception of this is that there are no people who are constantly complaining about slave films like all the time. There are people who have gotten to a point where they're saying like, I don't want any more. I've heard people say I don't want any more slave films. I've heard people say I don't want any more black trauma films. Very similar to you, like I don't want any more black corrupt films winning an Oscar, right? Like, why do you have to be this amoral character? Or this,
I don't mind. I was using that as an example of what people complain about when they say those are the type of characters that win. I was just as much as I was just
so there's
as
some people that's like, we
entertained
don't
with.
want those movies, period.
Well, I don't. I would never say what move, especially with black movies, I don't want. You would never hear me. Well, that's lying. I don't want any remakes. I don't care what race you are. But I just feel like the same people who I hear complaining about slave films don't go out and support them. So why are you complaining? I can see if you spent your money to watch the movies, which I think some of them do, and then you complain about it. I'm tired of another. Well, it wasn't for you. You supposed to go take your nephew, or your nephew was supposed to see this, or your little brother was supposed to see this. It may not have been for you. But that's always been my thing and that's as an educator, because I've seen some bad, like, to me, Django was more about the blood and gore and all, and not the story.
Django's
wasn't
fiction, though.
Yeah,
Django's fiction,
but it was still a slave movie though.
I don't know.
Not every slave movie is from an actual account. Some is just telling a story, which I agree with people. Those slave films may be a little problematic, because why couldn't you just talk about an actual occurrence, which Will Smith movie did do? A very unspoken character in slave history, actually, but I guess the slap did more harm than good.
I still think Django nailed the slavery era better than any film.
But if it wasn't funny or fictional, would we had accepted that movie better?
No, I think fiction helps. I think that's one of the best parts about fiction. Not even in just film, but even in books, where you can make allegories, and you can take real life things, and you can kind of mask them in certain things.
But someone's actual story being told.
Yeah, like real life occurrences, real life situations that you can mask in order to kind of take, I don't almost like the sting away from it. And in film, I don't think it works as well. Django was an interesting,
I don't know.
Django was a very interesting film to watch.
Have you ever seen Drunk History?
Yes, I've seen Drunk History. Yes.
Now, minus the fact that the storyteller is drunk or getting drunk during the duration of the TV show, I think that would be one of the best elements to introduce history to students. Minus the drunk part.
But it's the drunk part that makes it special.
Yeah.
Like, take the drunk part out of it, and you've got any old.
Like, I would not as a teacher. I would not as a teacher show that, but as a parent, I would. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, we getting ready to start watching the History of the World. What, Volume 2? Part 2? Yeah.
It just, for me, is a more,
and that's what comedy And that's what comedy does. Comedy takes real life situations, and a lot of times, and in most cases, and bends and twists
because that
to make
show.
it
But
palatable to
I
everyone.
only say that not for the entertainment value, but that show actually gives more authentic history than a lot of the historical movies have done. Like they tell you actual factual information. And it's covered up with this person getting drunk on the storytelling side and all
I
like
would
the
say that they
spoofing.
deliver. I would say that they deliver the information in a very popular way. I wouldn't say that
But
it's.
it's history that you
I
like.
wouldn't say
I
that it's
watched that and it
accurate.
was stuff that
I
I
wouldn't
had
say
to
that it's
then
like
research.
totally accurate. It's very surface level, and it's delivered comedically. It's delivered in a way that's easy for people to swallow. It's
Yeah.
the Tylenol with the gel coating or the flavored coating.
The Advil,
Not a
basically.
bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. But let's not assign it like. Let's
But
just
what
be
I'm saying
careful
is
not
some
to
of
up
the
it so much
and
that
I'm
people think
saying
they
in
can
most
watch
of
an
the stories that
episode.
I've seen, it is they give you information that you don't typically find in textbooks. Um, yeah, it's just that's the one element that I absolutely love it because it's information that even as an adult, there are moments that I have to go back and research that. Let me pause this and
It's
research
given.
this.
It's given in a real way.
Mm-hmm.
It's given. It's given with an opinion behind it. It's given with.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what really happened, like type of thing, which is awesome. Like that's what we want. We want an unvarnished kind of retelling of history. But here's the thing: the history, like there's a curriculum, and then there's the history books. The curriculum was set up in a way. The history books are pretty open to interpretation,
Mm-hmm.
and when you read them, it's like if you're well enough trained, you can read through the bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? The author has a biasness. Everybody has a bias.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I think
But
my opinion about parents watching it along with their children, I think I'm a stand in that. But I do think
yeah, I
it's an
agree.
interesting
Same thing
way
we was talking about
for
with the Miss Stat show because
yeah.
it leaves you open for conversation.
Yeah, and I think it's also a way of adults who just never learned that type of information to be entertained but still learning something. Because I've had history classes from all around the world, like civilization classes and history classes, and I've taken classes on my own, but it just was like you said, it was digestible. And then you learn stuff about a fact that you thought you knew, and you get a whole nother perspective or understanding of what that truth was. So it tells the truth in a different way. Or like I know they did a number of ones with MLK and his story, but you hear other pieces of information that make you question like what was the truth? Like did he really have affairs or was it like it just makes you question facts that you've already been given to it's been given to me as fact. But it's an interesting show. But I do believe Angela Bassett should have won. I do believe UnPrisoned, um, given a chance, could be a good show. Because I've noticed in them previewing upcoming episode that is the whole season out on that? Because I just saw the one.
Yeah, the whole season's out. The whole
Okay,
season's
so
out, and I think
I just
it's a
feel like
short. It's like
it
8 episodes,
yeah.
and they're
Oh,
like
so
40
that's just
minutes
a
apiece.
trial.
So it's not.
Okay.
It actually was probably a brisk watch. We could probably finish it up this week and talk
Mm-hmm.
about it next week if you want to.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely watch it. I just had some things come up this
I
weekend.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
give Unbothered so far. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 stars. And
Okay.
looking, but I want to leave it with the caveat that I watched the first 3 episodes, and based off the third episode, I'm really excited to get to the fourth.
So by the time you get to the third episode, are we talking more about him, his transition out of jail,
This,
or is that
yeah,
just something
nah,
that's just
it's just there's a specific thing for me that happened between the two of them that I thought I was like, oh, like it was just it kind of was jarring almost from the rest of the show for me, and I was like, oh, it was kind of like when I was kind of like in and out of paying attention, and it was like, oh, that kind of fixated me. So, and it ended there, and I was like, oh, okay, this might get good, you know what I mean? So yeah,
so it's something
definitely
that we
check
should
out
still
other.
keep watching.
I agree with Nate that I thought Angela Bassett should have won for Best Supporting Actress, but trying to be
He
as
had
unbiased as
troublemaker.
I can, I completely understand the Jamie Lee Curtis win. I still think that Angela Bassett had the better performance
Mm-hmm.
overall. But I do understand that win. I do.
And maybe they judged her based off of the time they were on screen. Maybe that was a deciding factor.
Maybe could have
Maybe
been a deciding factor. Could have been
because
also. It could have
I
been.
don't see
It could.
anything
There's a
else.
number. There's a number of things that I think could have been the deciding factor for individual people.
Mm-hmm.
Not simply just. I just threw that up there as an example that one of the things that was different about those two performances is that you had this really powerful singular performance, and then you had there's no moment that Jamie Lee Curtis gave me a moment that was as like swelling and kind of like emotional and powerful as that
Mm-hmm.
Angela Bassett moment.
Right.
But peppered throughout the whole 2.5 hour movie, Jamie Lee Curtis had a lot more to work with, and there were some very poignant scenes in that. Nothing that would equate to this one scene. But when you look, like, I just think that when you're looking at the totality of the performance itself, like you have this one scene here, and you have this like kind of like sprawling kind of like body of scenes over here that could have played in certain movie critics. I don't even know if I could call them critics. The people who vote on the Academy are like the people in the film industry itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's just kind of like, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's like watching a championship game and somebody steps on the court and scores 20 quick points versus the person who scored, 20 points, but they were in the game the whole time. They played offense and defense versus somebody who came in 3 minutes and scored. Like, yeah, that was amazing. But then how do you compare that with the person who was in the game the full 48 minutes? You know what I'm saying? Playing both sides of the court the whole 48 minutes and still producing, an amazing overall performance. So I don't know. I don't know how they judged it.
Mm-hmm.
Angela Bassett is
The GOAT.
the shit. She's
She is
definitely a
in the
goat.
league with the Felicia Rashards and
But you want to hear something interesting about Angela
mm-hmm.
Bassett, Nate?
Well,
You know who else has never given? You know who else has never crowned her?
who?
BET.
That doesn't surprise me.
That shocks the fuck out of me.
Well, the things I
If you
will
had told me,
say,
like,
there has been
she
things that
has
she's been
she
in.
has 10 to 11 Best Actress nominations in the BET Awards. She
Mm-hmm.
hasn't won at all.
But look who she's on.
That shocks the hell out of me. I'm
But
not
but
even gonna
look who
front.
she's always in line with. It's always BET strictly picks you on popularity, and it's not even voting from us. It's what they deem as popular. So BET, in my opinion, BET, like TV One and their award show, it's all about who can I get to come on here and be a celebrity. And that's why a lot of celebrities don't really go to that award show. Because it's
Golden
gotten younger
Globes
and
have shown
younger.
her mad love. The Golden Globes has shown her mad love.
Mm-hmm.
The Emmys is another one. Nominated.
I think the
1,
Golden
2, 3,
Globes
4,
is
5,
more your
6,
peers.
7, 8, 9.
I think the Golden Globes is your peers voting you in. That's probably why she got more
which
love.
one is that?
I think the Golden Globes is more of your peers voting you in.
No, that's the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. The Emmys. I think it's the Emmys that are like your peers.
I thought the Golden Globes, well, maybe they just feel the same way as the Oscars, right? Mm-hmm. Which is a mixture of this industry. So, the Artist Exchange. Go ahead.
Tell us what y'all thought. If you saw UnPrisoned, put your thoughts in the comments. We're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about this next week after we finish the first season. And tell us what you think. Should be I think the bigger question over Jamie Lee and Angela Bassett is the question of like, should we continue down this road?
Yeah.
With the Academy Awards. The Academy Awards has about 8,500 voting members. There's currently a black woman at the head of it.
Actually, is that the creator of? Is that not Star Trek? What's the white man that's over top of? I think it is Star Trek.
Oh no, we're gonna do it. Like I think we should probably make that the subject of our next show, and we should really delve into like some of these award shows, so we can come back and really educate people about it who might not know. I think that would be pretty dope to come back and really talk about who they are, what award shows, like who is nominating and like who's bestowing these awards. But yeah, like I think the bigger question. So, like honestly, like was Angela robbed? Was Miss Angela Bassett robbed? How do you feel about Jamie Lee Curtis' performance?
I think secretly you feel like she was robbed, but you like that film,
I don't feel like
you feel conflicted a little bit.
I don't feel conflicted. I don't feel conflicted at all. I don't think she was robbed. I don't think anybody is ever robbed for an Oscar. If you want to talk about my personal opinion, I don't think anybody's ever robbed.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you based off of who's doing the picking.
Have I ever told you my Manchester by the Sea story?
No.
Have I told you that?
Nope.
I've never told you my I thought I talked about. I was talking to my sister earlier, and I couldn't remember if I had talked about it on the show. So let me close the show out with this. Here's the story. So a couple years ago, Denzel Washington lost for Fences. I saw Fences, of course. I've acted in Fences. Like it's one of my favorite plays. I saw Fences in the theater like 4 times. I thought it was that great. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a show that I deeply connected with. It was a show that I thought was I have a personal connection to it. All my favorites are in it. I'm watching this show. I've saw it 4 times in the theater. I watched it like 3 or 4 times when it came out on Netflix or HBO Max, whichever one it was. So long story short, we get to Academy Awards night, and like Nate, I watch the Academy Awards every year. And I just knew Denzel was going to win. I just knew it. And Best Actor category comes up, and Denzel Washington does not win it. He loses to Casey Affleck, Ben Affleck's little brother. First of all, who the fuck is Casey Affleck? Like, I knew who Casey Affleck was. I'm being facetious right now, but that was all the emotions that in that moment for me. I was like, what the fuck? And it validated me because Casey Affleck went up, and during his speech, two things happened that year. And so let me go back. Two things happened that year. First, it was the Grammys, and what's her name? The singing ass white girl. What's her name, Nate? The singing ass British girl. She was big, then she got skinny. She was 19, then she was 21, then she was 23. What's her name, Nate? What's her name? Adele. Adele won Best Album over Beyonce and got up, and her whole like acceptance speech was a dedication to Beyonce. And I was like, yeah, you already know what it is. So then the Academy Awards happened, and this motherfucker Casey Affleck wins, and I'm sitting there like, what the fuck? I'm like pissed off. I'm like, this is some bullshit. Who the hell is he? That's Ben Affleck's little brother. And he gets up on the stage, and his acceptance speech, he starts it with like a direct like joint to Denzel. He like a direct shout out to Denzel Washington. And Denzel Washington, go back and look at the clip, Nate. Denzel Washington was giving him the Angel Bassett. He was straight up like, no. Nigga, I'm not feeling nothing you saying. Nigga. Like, it was all that. So anyway, long story short, because of that, I was like, I gotta go see what these motherfuckers talking about. I gotta go see it now. I gotta go watch Manchester by the Sea. Because I gotta find out because I'm sitting there, Nate, I was sitting there like, yo, what multi-universe, what alternate timeline did I slip into where Ben Affleck's little brother has beaten Denzel Washington for Best Actor award? I was like flabbergasted. I was all over the fucking place.
You said the Manchester candidate?
It's called Manchester by the Sea.
Okay.
So I made it a point, like in the following week, I was like, I gotta watch this film. Because I gotta find out what the fuck did he do in Manchester by the Sea. And you know what, Nate? I went and watched Manchester by the Sea. And by the time the credits were rolling, I was like, damn. I'm not gonna say that his performance was better than Denzel's, but I can see how he might have won. I can see how he won. It was that good. It really was that good. It was different from what I expect from a Denzel Washington movie. Mm-hmm. It's the type of movie, and here was the thing, and this is where this was the birth of the idea of like my own bias. Because the thing is, I would have never gone to see a movie like Manchester by the Sea. I wouldn't have paid to go see it. It's not a movie when it popped up on Amazon or Netflix, it's not a movie that I would have watched. There's nothing about the movie that would have connected to me. Yet it was an incredibly beautiful story. I was watching the shit, and initially I was like, what the am I watching? Because I didn't even know what it was about. And I'm like, what the hell am I watching?
They're called the Blizzard movies. That's what me and my friend called the Blizzard movies.
So here's the thing, and I don't think I knew what it was about because I'm sure there was marketing for this film. I wouldn't have paid attention to it. I'm sure there was posters and there was probably articles going around talking about how great of a and there were. I actually looked back and there were. Like people have been raving about his performance from before the movie came out. Like when the embargo lifted on reviews, his performance in that film was being praised. I overlooked all that shit. Because why? Because it's a movie called Manchester by the Sea with nobody in it that is a personal fan of mine. But when the credits started rolling, I was like, okay, George, if we being honest right now, I would have preferred Denzel won that movie. However, this was a powerful fucking performance. And it was. And like the subject matter, all of it lent itself. It had the same emotional weight that Offenses had, except I ain't white. So that's probably not how I would have handled the situation. I was sitting there the whole time like, I don't know if this is how I would handle this situation. Whereas though in Fences, I watched Fences and I'm like, yeah, Troy, that's right. That's right. Me and your mama, we worked that out between us. That's right, Troy. I feel you. Like, I feel that on a different level.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't sit here and deny that even though I may not speak the exact same language, that this is not as equally powerful as what was going on over here. Because Manchester by the Sea is it's a fucked up movie. It's a deep movie. Like,
I'm watching the IMDb
so like essentially it's a
trailer
movie.
for it.
It's a movie about a guy whose brother dies, and he now becomes the guardian of his nephew.
Right.
And and the way the movie is shot and the way that the timeline breaks down, you can tell that him and his nephew are not cool right now, but they used to be, but you don't know why they not now. And then you also realize that this nigga is a dick, but you don't know why he's a dick. And then then they start to introduce certain flashbacks, and you find out what's really going on with y'all. And by the end of the movie, it's like, damn, that was some deep shit. Again,
and white people, and this may seem racist, but white people make trauma porn. Like, they know how to make trauma porn, and they know how to make it very well. And I think sometimes emotions can get entwined with their stories, and they'll be telling some off-the-wall stories, but they add a layer of emotion into it where it brings it out of you.
And you want
But
to be honest.
I'm very careful not to get caught up in that and just watch this. What is the story saying?
And the funny thing is that it looked like it was some off the wall, just unnecessary shit when you first start watching it. But then when you get the full picture,
right,
it immediately changes your perception of what came before. So I say all that to say is this. I still think Denzel should have won. But I also respect the fact that in this particular film, like, Casey Affleck acted his fucking ass off.
And it's very possible for somebody to step on the scene.
Absolutely deserved to be nominated.
Right.
And he absolutely deserved that win. And that's not taking away anything from Denzel. He could have won it, and I still would have felt the same way about the Casey Affleck performance. But honestly, if Denzel had won, I'd have just walked away with the win, with the Denzel win. I'd have never saw Manchester by the Sea. And truth be told, to this day, I'm thankful that I actually got to see that movie, because it really was a good movie.
And I watch really stuff like that, but I have to watch it because I'm not connected. Because I'm not connected, I have to watch it when there's a storm outside or when there's a blizzard or something, because it'll help me to pay attention and focus better. I am a person, I could listen to an August Wilson movie and be good, and be connected and be in it. It's the same thing. So, I mean, I know we're going to talk about this later.
Our stories are always going to be special to us. And naturally, I always want our stories to win. But if I'm being fair, like, we're not the only.
But do you have to be fair, though? Do you have to be fair? Because our work isn't.
Do I have to be fair? No.
No, and I don't feel like we don't have. I feel like if you choose to, you can be. But I don't feel like we have to be fair in that, because our work is never given the opportunity, really.
But here's the thing, Nate, and ultimately, this is where I stand. Like, I don't want to replicate what white people have done to black people and other peoples of color. I don't want to do that.
But it's not
I have no
I
desire.
I feel like us doing that
to let them
does
set the
not take away
tone.
from their opportunities because they're
No.
still going to
Hold on.
be considered.
I do not have the desire to replicate the shit that they have done. I do not. I don't want to act like that towards them because I also don't want to act like that towards Asian people. I don't want to act like that. I don't want to see Asian films and then be like, oh, I don't want to see that because it's an Asian film. I want to be able to appreciate and enjoy all cultures. I do not want to create a place or world where we just acting like white people. Like every little category of people is just acting like white people. And now we just
I'm gonna tell you why, and we can probably get into this when we come back next week as well. Only reason I say that, and it's not a malicious thing, it's the same thing where they asked, what was her name? I think a couple Oscars ago, and they asked her, "Who are you? Who are you rooting for this year?" She was like, "Everybody black." And I said that I feel that way, but I don't feel like that takes anything away from any other culture.
I don't either.
Because our work is never deemed at the top of the list. And my prime example, The Color Purple. The Color Purple went into the Oscars, and I think that was like 84, 85. I think it was like 86. It went into the Oscars. It had 11 nominations. Most of its actors were nominated, the starring actors, the picture, the costumes, the film, the director, 11 nominations.
And they walked away with a donut.
You can't tell me that no other film in that genre that year, in any of those categories, outdid them. But because the majority of their actors, with the exception of Samuel L. Jackson, not Samuel L. Jackson, Danny Glover, and maybe the man who played his father, the rest of them were really novice actors. For the most part, a lot of them, that was maybe their third film, and none of them had started anything other than Danny Glover. And the man who played his father had been in other films. But prior to that, but because all of them were novice actors, it gave Hollywood an excuse to not pick them. But for every other category, costumes, makeup, just to see the making of that film and see how intricate all the parts were, it still wasn't chosen. My thing going into this, that's because the judging panel is very unbalanced and they're very biased towards.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that that's something? Do you think that that's something that's reserved to black people?
I don't.
Or people of color.
But that's your job to fight your battle. That's your job.
What do you mean?
That's your job to fight your battle. I can be an ally for you, but that's your job to get out there and root for your team. White people can be our allies.
But what I'm saying is that,
but it's our job to get out there and root for our products, our culture.
But you said, but it's films, not a popularity. It's not a popularity contest.
I don't think it's attached to being popular because that's not the criteria that you're voting on. So I don't think it's always racial. I think there's racial undertones in it, but I think it's just, this is what I like. It's very hard for me to see anything else. But if you make up the majority of the voters, that is bias. That is wrong. Because you're always going to win. If the majority of you only like this type of thing, you're not even looking at anybody else unless they far super exceed your expectation. And often that takes them years to get to that. Why is Eddie Murphy now just winning a Kennedy Center Award?
A what award?
He won the I cannot remember the name of it. Something. It was a Kennedy Center honor. He just winning one. Now I think
So would you
maybe
be
I'm saying in the
surprised?
last 10 years he could have won one, but they
But
thought that this was the
why is there a
perfect
time
time.
frame on that? It's like kind of like the Hall of Fame. Like it doesn't matter when you get it.
It for
There's
me
literally no time frame on it. Like they
for
just
me.
go down their list of greats and they continuously and
But
continuously.
but for them picking people, there have been several people who have won that award posthumously, meaning they died and had not won an award. For me, awards
Mhm,
don't signify anything about a person's greatness, but typically it is your own community embracing you. And typically for us, we don't typically get that until we're too far gone in life, like after like years later, after we die, or and then our work is. Nina Simone was only popular with certain people. It's only certain, and naming her, but there's certain people that don't get great until they 89. Cicely Tyson never won an award. No, she won awards, but she never won an
mhm,
Oscar. She never. I think she won an Emmy, but she died not even winning an Oscar for her body of work.
mhm.
And she was nominated several times. I think for
So
Jane Pittman alone, the Jane Pittman story alone, she should have won an Oscar. But there's always
mhm,
something technical that can be said as to why this movie over here won.
mhm,
And typically, as black films, especially if it's a black film, it's typically, unless it has a big name like Steven Spielberg attached to it, like for The Color Purple, it typically has a smaller budget than its whiter counterparts.
mhm.
So what they're capable of doing, magic has to be made for that film to even be quality material to be selected. But every time black films show up and show out. And then we have our B list type films where, but we still make magic in telling our stories, but it's not seen as, because it wasn't technically,
She won
a
the Academy.
masterpiece.
She won the Academy
Wasn't that a lifetime
honorary
achievement?
award.
Right?
It was called the honorary award. It sounds like it's very close to the
Like lifetime
lifetime
achievement.
achievement.
Hmm. And she won that very late in life, like very late in
Yeah,
life.
2018.
Hmm. Yep. And it was because the work that she was doing later in her life was more Tyler Perry type stuff. So they wasn't going to select her for any of those movies. But she did Trip to Bountiful,
Mm-hmm.
which was a play. But it actually was a film too.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't win for that. And her and Vanessa Williams were great in that. I forgot the man that was in it, but great. But
Mm.
so I guess next week we'll talk more about the criteria of these films and
All right, but before you want, I do want to point this out.
mhm.
So, The
You
Color
must be
Purple.
on spring. You on spring break?
Hmm. The Color Purple.
Mm-hmm.
There's one, two, three, four, five movies with 6 movies. 6 movies
Mm-hmm.
that in the history of the Academy Awards have had 10 or more nominations in
Mm-hmm.
total and walked away with nothing.
Mm-hmm. What movies were they?
Gangs of New York,
Okay.
Leonardo DiCaprio, and
Mm-hmm.
that was Scorsese with Leonardo DiCaprio and Daniel Day-Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
True Grit, the
Mm-hmm.
Coen
I ain't heard that
brothers
that much.
with Matt Damon and what's his name? Jeff Bridges. American Hustle. was nominated for 10 with Christian Bale and Jennifer Lawrence. The Turning Point, which came out in 1977, and The Color Purple.
And they had 11 nominations.
10 or 11. 10 or 11. Let's see. Color Purple had 11. Turning Point had 11. American Hustle had 11. True Grit and Gangs of New York had 10. From there, it skips down to 8 nominations or less. The Godfather Part 3 is on this list. The Shawshank Redemption is on this list. 7 nominations, no wins. The Wolf of Wall Street, 5 nominations, no wins. Psycho, Doctor Strangelove. There's several movies that have had multiple nominations, like double digits. There's 6 of them have double-digit nominations.
Were they The Color Purple?
No, but no, they weren't The Color Purple. No,
this was one of the first black. One of the first black one of the highest paid black films of its time. I think this was. I can't. Don't quote me. I forgot it was a couple. I'm trying to remember the amount that Steven Spielberg said. But they filmed in Africa. They filmed on a live plantation in North Carolina. The actresses.
So interestingly enough, The Color Purple lost out to Out of Africa, which also had 11 nominations. Won 7 awards.
Have you seen that movie?
Of its 11 nominations. Probably as a kid. Doesn't. Yeah. It's not The Color Purple.
Compare. I'm sorry. It's not. It's not. So that, I mean, and I've been watching.
Here's another thing that's mentioned in this. Right? But in truth, The Color Purple rarely gets a mention when discussing Spielberg's best work.
E.T. gets talked about more than that.
The Color Purple is great for us.
I think that movie. Story. I think any culture could have placed themselves in that movie with slight cultural changes, very slight, and it'd be the same movie. I don't care what race, what culture you put into that movie. It could have been. It's a timeless story. I just, and not even because I read the book. Not because I've seen.
So, let me give you an example, Nate. A couple years ago, this movie called Crazy Rich Asians came out.
I remember.
And I kind of wrote the shit off. I was like, okay, it's about a bunch of rich Asian motherfuckers. I literally just wrote it off. Then I happened to see the movie because somebody close to me said it was really good, and I watched it, and I was like, holy shit!
Yeah,
because it's really a story about Asian, like first generation Asian kids and their relationship with their parents, right? Like, so this title, Crazy Rich Asians, is just, it's just a particular, like, we're a rich Asian family because my parent immigrated here, but I was born in America and I have American. So I was watching it and I was like, even then I was like, oh shit, it's deeper than I thought. But even then I was just like, okay. It's good. It's better than I thought it was going to be. There's only so much I can connect with that story. But to an Asian American watching that movie's probably everything. It's probably the first time, like, and I can't sit here and act like I'm a expert in Asian cinema in America, but for a lot of them, it might have been like maybe the reason why they were such a craze around the film was that they're like, oh, for the first time. This is a movie that, like, I see myself. So for them, if I got an Asian American friend, he probably like love that movie. You know what I'm saying? Because it speaks to him. The Color Purple speaks to me.
It does,
and
but
like to act like it's like that should be the end all be all because
no,
it speaks to
because
me.
I have other
Gotta be.
I have other movies that I really think are better than The Color Purple. But The Color Purple is my favorite movie. And right now I'm watching everything Color Purple because it's leading up to
The Color Purple is a staple in the house. I completely understand what you're saying.
But I don't like it because it's a black film. I like it because it's great. And it proves to me that you don't need a seasoned actor to make a great film. Because many of those actors in that film were novice. I think it was maybe a handful of them that had done other projects. I mean, other films. But it just that film was just
all right. Let's do this because we've been on now for almost 3 hours. Let's say goodnight.
Mm-hmm.
And let's part 2 this discussion next week.
Okay.
And let's talk. We can pick it up here, and we can continue this discussion around the politics of recognition,
mm-hmm.
of being awarded. Like I feel like we have enough material to keep this shit going.
Okay.
So if we have to come back for part 2, and if me and you finish watching UnPrisoned, we can also touch on that. Okay. But then we can continue this conversation because we are coming up on 3 hours.
It's true. I kept saying, I was like,
God, I limited myself. I know I ain't
on my whiskey tonight, right now, but I was
so
like,
I'm not nodding the fuck off at the
I'm
end.
thinking spring break has started soon or something.
No, spring break hasn't started, so I need to be up tomorrow. So that's why I'm saying, like, yeah, because we're at 2:55 right now.
So as I was saying, check out the Artist Exchange Artist Hub on your YouTube, Facebook. Starting in May, we'll be on other digital platforms. We're actually in the process of building our website. The link tree will be in the bio. If you go to the link tree, you'll be able to see all of our stuff, all of our other shows, all of that. And the link tree link in the bio section. So go check that out. Tomorrow we'll be live at Center Stage for Strange Little Things. Beautiful Little Things. I'm sorry. It was the movie that starred Kerry Washington, where she was burning shit up. And it's a really interesting story. Actually, speaking of rich Asian, what was it? Rich something? Crazy Rich Asians. If you remember also the Italian version of that, where it was, I think that movie was kind of redone from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. The actor that starred in that actually was one of the writers for this. She wrote it, and it's a great piece. But we'll be there on their Artist Maker Night tomorrow. Tickets are just $5, and I think you can still go online. If you go to our Facebook page, you'll see the link to take you to Center Stage, and then go to our page so you can get the link and get the discount code. And tickets are just $5. But the Artist Exchange Media Hub will be there. So peace out, people. Good night. Enjoy everything. We haven't done a 3-hour show in so long, but peace out.
All right, y'all. Have a good night.
And this is it.